Hello EGU participants, and thank you for joining us for this short course. I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the topic of responsible mining, why it matters, some of the challenges, and how it relates to geoethics. We depend on metals and other mineral raw materials for almost everything we do. A major driver of increasing demand for minerals is the need to rapidly deploy low-carbon energy technologies at a huge scale, while ensuring more equitable access to goods and services for a growing global population. This will require an enormous increase, not just in the total amount of mined resources, but also in the range of elements we will need, especially technology metals. Many of these have not previously been used in significant quantities, so we cannot rely on recycling and other circular economy approaches to provide them. We will have to mine them, often in places without a history of mining. However, the global legacy of mining and using mineral resources has all too often been characterized by social, environmental and economic harm. So, the way in which we mine is very important. Considering the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for example, mining has the potential to contribute positively to all 17 of the goals, some more obviously than others, or conversely to exacerbate the social, environmental and economic challenges they set out. The 2016 publication of the UN Development Programme, the World Economic Forum and other partners shown here is a really useful starting point for understanding these potential positive and negative impacts. Deciding how we go about extracting resources from the geosphere and how this impacts on the places and communities where it happens is at the heart of applied geoethics. In principle, responsible mining is quite simple. It is about maximising the positive social, environmental and economic impacts of mining while minimising its negative impacts. Of course, in practice, this is far from simple to achieve. The social, environmental and economic factors that need to be considered are complex, contingent and often contested. Some of the key generic issues to consider are set out here, but this is far from being a comprehensive list. The issues affecting particular mining projects are interrelated in complex ways that depend on particular places and communities where they are being planned or are taking place. Different community and stakeholder perspectives and priorities may be in tension, giving rise to genuine geoethical dilemmas. An essential aspect of addressing these challenges is to work closely with local communities and stakeholder groups, understanding their perspectives, building and maintaining relationships of trust, and ensuring that their voices are heard at all stages of the mining life cycle. This is very hard to do well, even for mining companies who are trying to do the right thing. Boon's 2020 book in the Spring of Reefs series, mentioned earlier by Giuseppe, represents a really valuable resource to inform effective community engagement, drawing on his own sociological research. There is a vast range of responsible mining standards, certification schemes and sources of guidance for mining companies. A useful introduction to responsible mining viewed through the lens of geoethics is provided by the IAPG white paper shown on the right. However, the very fact that there are so many schemes and standards is a significant challenge to mining companies seeking to act responsibly. Which should they engage with? The fact that these schemes and standards are generally not visible to those outside the mining sector means that responsible mining companies that incur the cost of working to high standards and of certifying this are unlikely to be rewarded for their efforts by investors or by the users of raw materials, manufacturers, and ultimately individual consumers. So, responsible mining, responsible sourcing of minerals by manufacturers, and responsible investment in mining by financial institutions is not well joined up. Furthermore, extracting raw materials from the ground in a responsible way can only be one part of moving towards a more sustainable system of production and consumption of mineral resources. How we use these resources and keep them in use so as to minimise the environmental and social burden and ensure that the needs of future generations can also be met also really matters. This is the starting point for my own research and my consultancy work. This slide gives an indication of some of the components of a sustainable new minerals economy and of the interdependent supply chain actors and other stakeholders who have a part to play. And here are some of those key stakeholders. Again, it is not an exhaustive list, but in addition to mining companies, manufacturers, investors, and operators of voluntary schemes, as well as ethically oriented citizens or consumers, I would particularly draw attention to the essential role of governments. Much more effective national and international policy making is needed to incentivise and reward truly responsible mining, and also to stimulate and coordinate other components of a sustainable new minerals economy. Finally, in thinking about what principles and values should guide this array of actors and stakeholders in the essential shared mission of using Earth's resources responsibly and sustainably, I return to the values of geoethics, which I have summarised on the right based on those set out in the Cape Town Statement on Geoethics. Although geoscientists bear particular responsibility for our interactions with the Earth, given our skills and knowledge, geoethics provides a basis for all human agents involved in these interactions. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to an interesting discussion at the end of the session, and please feel free to email me with any questions or comments.